2002 that showed many faults and fractures, quote, a web of basement faults that crisscross New York State, unquote. Why does the S-Geist reach all the way back to 1977 to its map of faults? Figure 4.13 shows essentially no faults and fractures where the shale is. Is this a deliberate deception? The S-Geist should be withdrawn and the Jacobi information considered. What is happening in the Susquehanna River Basin in PA will happen in New York. You cannot deny reality by grasping at ignorance.
Thank you. I'm a member of Catskill Citizens for Safe Energy. It's a local grassroots organization that's concerned about our drinking water, public health, and our local economy. We believe the net effect of fracking will be a loss of jobs in the region, loss of jobs in tourism, agriculture, construction trade, service industries. We think it will further impoverish an already poor region. I had high hopes that Governor Cuomo and Commissioner Martins would take a responsible approach to fracking. I can only say I'm very disappointed in what they produced. The revised draft is not a science-based plan, it's a political document. It attempts to calculate just how many people can be thrown under the bus and still achieve the results that they want politically in terms of pleasing the oil and gas industry. It says that the New York City's water must be protected because, quote, unfiltered drinking water supplies have a heightened sensitivity to chemical discharges as there is no immediately available method to remove contaminants. Like many of us here today, I have unfiltered drinking water, but it's not protected by the draft. We face the same threats as New York City, including, quote, releases from chemicals and drilling fluids from the well pad as a result of tank ruptures, equipment or surface impoundment failures, overfills, vandalism, accidents, ground fires, and improper operations. Why doesn't the draft offer us the same protections it's giving to New York City? Simply because we don't have the political clout. That's all that's about. And in the draft, even the most basic protections are for sale. The draft says gas wells must be set back 500 feet from private water wells in order to prevent drinking water contamination and to protect public health. But these setbacks are for sale. The draft permits gas companies to induce property owners to waive the setback requirement. For the right price, a landowner will be allowed to endanger the health of his children or his tenants or the people who may occupy his house after them. And when the draft does come up against real science, it tries to bury the inconvenient truth. To give just one example, I'm going to read what the draft says about the peer-reviewed Duke study that found drinking water wells in the vicinity of gas wells are likely to be contaminated with methane. The draft had one paragraph on this very important study, and it says, the analysis showed minimum amounts of methane in the sample group with concentrations significantly below the minimum methane action level. The water well located in the active extraction area had 5 to 10 times less methane than the wells located in inactive areas. Now, if you read this and you didn't know better, you'd think that the Duke study concluded that gas wells didn't contaminate water wells. But that's not true. The study looked at 69 water wells and found systemic evidence for methane contamination of drinking water associated with shale gas extraction.
Sir, your time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Rita Maidenbaum. Sir, can I have your comment? Sir, can I have what you're referencing? Thank you very much.
Hi, I am a mother from Bethel, New York, and I have written a letter to Governor Cuomo with over 200 signatures of mothers of Sullivan County against fracking. I am urging you, our Department of Environmental Conservation, to protect us, the people, and not the pockets of the oil and natural gas industry. There is no part of New York State that should be eligible for fracking. The risks are much too high. The SGIS of July 2011 may appear at first glance to be a significant improvement over the previous document released in 2009. However, it is seriously flawed. Insufficient time has been allowed for comments from the public, and insufficient hearings have been set. This proposed SGIS will protect some drinking water supplies like New York City watershed but not others like our precious Delaware River Basin, which supplies water to over 15 million people. If fracking isn't safe for New York City drinking water, it surely isn't safe for the drinking water of the rest of New York State. This proposed SGIS plan to track the solid and liquid waste that are generated in connection with fracking sounds positive until we read the fine print that you, the DEC, are leaving the tracking of these toxic wastes up to the gas industry operators. We all know and have seen what happens when the gas industry is asked to police itself. Even more upsetting is that the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation is still not classifying some of the waste that normally qualifies as hazardous as hazardous. That means that fracking waste and even worse, radioactive sludge would be sent to treatment facilities that are not able to properly treat it. No one can assure us that these toxic fluids won't present a threat to our drinking water supplies in the years and decades to come. The reality is that no amount of regulation, no amount of permitting guidelines, no amount of laws and ordinances can protect our water and our communities from a reckless industry. We work hard to raise and feed our children and depend on our governmental agencies to protect us. Nobody can convince us that our children and grandchildren's health, water, and air are less important than our gas. We strongly urge you as our Department of Environmental Conservation to stop our governor, who seems to be in such a rush to frack New York State. I have one more thing. You can fool some of the people all of the time and all of the people some of the time, but you can't fool all the people all the time, and that's Abraham Lincoln.
Ma'am, can you accept your comments? Carla Fest.
My name is Carla Fisk. I live in Loch Sheldrake and I live in New York City. My day job is as a green building consultant, a lead AP. I got into the job after my mother was diagnosed with chronic lymphocytic leukemia. My father was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. After they had lived in a house that had gassed out for over 30 years after being insulated with urea formaldehyde foam insulation. And now I'm here talking about the threat to all of our health from the VOCs that are created by the shale gas drilling and fracking process. Many people have addressed many of the issues that I wanted to address here today. So give me a moment to glance at my notes and address something that hasn't been addressed. Primarily, DC, the draft supplemental generic environmental impact statement on hydrofracking is gravely deficient, with errors and omissions that, if approved, would be disastrous to the health, safety, and economic future of all New York citizens. There is so much wrong with it that it would take me 3,000 minutes to comment on it, not 3. In fact, it should be withdrawn. Until then, here are just a few of the most dangerous errors and omissions, or some of the dangerous errors and omissions in the draft SGIS. Just anecdotally, my cousin is a geological engineer that works for a small drilling company in Pennsylvania. 100% of his job is going from drill site to investigate reports of methane migration into drilling water wells, drinking water wells, excuse me. Almost every one of those reports checks out with methane having migrated from the gas well into the drinking water well. This is common. This is what happens every time a gas well is drilled to prepare for fracking. It's the price of doing business, the price that we would have to bear. Secondarily, second issue regarding the draft SGIS. Emergency services. The section on emergency services simply requires that gas drillers have a plan. A plan. Here in the Catskills in the southern tier, we have small communities that are struggling, as we've heard people say earlier, just to cover the basics. we don't have the money or the funds or the people to do it, to handle it. Thank you.
Thank you. Brandy Mordoa.
Hello, my name is Brandy Marola, and I live in Narrowsburg, New York. My concerns with the S-Geist are many, but I only have 3 minutes. To begin with, just because the gas industry is protected by the law from disclosing the toxic chemicals in their fracking fluid doesn't mean we, the public, will be exempt from their toxic consequences. We know through lab analysis that 93% of the hundreds of corrosive chemicals used to break up the shale have negative health effects on humans and animals when exposed to them. And by negative health effects, I mean everything from asthma to cancer. Since there have been no long-term cumulative health studies in New York regarding exposure to this brew, we must not rush into issuing permits before we fully understand the probable, irreversible health effects that have been reported around the country relating to fracking. Carcinogens, neurotoxins, and endocrine disruptors are but a few of the categories of chemicals used in this process, and we, the public, demand from them protection of our air, water, our farmed foods, and health. The S-Geist has not banned specific deadly chemicals from the fracking fluid, and this poses a very real threat to the health, safety, and welfare of our state's citizens. Fast-tracking fracking is short-sighted, highly irresponsible, and reckless. The fact that the S-Geist regs do not classify fracking waste as hazardous is unconscionable. We know now that horizontal fracking brings up radium and heavy metals from deep below the Earth's surface. Radioactive waste is toxic and hazardous and must be classified as such. With no specific safe plan to dispose of this radioactive waste, how can proposed drilling commence? New York State has no wastewater treatment plants to date capable of handling radioactive waste. High-pressure re-injecting of the wastewater back into the wells has been proven to cause seismic activity as seen in Arkansas, Virginia, and England. Is this a risk that we are willing to take with New York's fault lines? 5 years into the production life of all wells, there will be a need to dispose of tens of thousands of hot radioactive pipe lengths once the radium, which is soluble in water, begins to calcify and clog the insides of the pipes in a well. That too is an enormous amount of hazardous waste and needs to be addressed realistically. Please listen to your educated citizens and do your homework like we have. Don't believe the hype of Madison Avenue's ads painting a perfectly clean picture of horizontal drilling. Listen to the scientists for an informed view of the entire complex process of filthy fracking. It's time to expose the politics of gas and stop exposing our citizens to the dangers of fracking for gas.
At this time, I'd like to call up speakers 41 through 50. Ann Finnerman, please be seated in the front row.
If you've spoken to, if you could leave.